Welcome to the Righteous Uproar, folks. It's the podcast where we mix Michigan moxie with a pinch of facts. I'm your host, Tamara Graham, broadcasting straight from the heart of the Great Lakes State. Grab a seat, buckle up, or hold on tight, because it is a wild ride as we wade through the tumultuously swampy waters of U.S. politics and her characters at play. These kids are all right. I find myself saying that quite a lot these days about Gen Z. Having a 19-year-old son myself, and he being as politically informed and involved as he is, may skew my perception just a tad, but then I meet young adults like those of the Michigan Young Democrats, and it solidifies my belief. These young folks are smart, driven, and most importantly, they care. They care about the world around them, the people around them, the planet around them. And they don't come from a place of shame like most people from my Gen X generation and above do. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to have a little talk about politics and Gen Z today. Adam, let's start with you.
All right. My name is Adam Lacasse. I'm the president of the Michigan Federation of College Democrats. We actually go by just Michigan College Democrats now. My last administration changed that. But I also serve as the co-president of the College Democrats at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
My name is Ethan Lang. I am the press secretary for the Michigan College Democrats, and I am also a student at the University of Michigan Flint, where we are actively trying to restart our chapter there.
Hi, I'm Stella Camerlengo. I am an incoming sophomore at the American University in Washington, D.C., but I'm originally from a town in between Detroit and Ann Arbor called Novi. And I'm the communications director for the Michigan College Democrats.
How are you the communications director for Michigan College Democrats? So it's not based on university, right? It's just based on where you live?
So we voted on a new constitution at our last convention where we have these things called at-large members who are now considered voting members that are people or students who are Michigan residents but go to college out of state. So we had a few people from Dartmouth. We have one at UC Berkeley, and we have one transferring from a university here to a university in Kentucky, I believe, or Kansas.
Understood.
So we have people all over the map. I was just going to add that a lot of the work we do is remote. Obviously, we have people on the ground here throughout the school year, but a lot of the work that we as an executive board do is online.
Okay. I would like each of you to share a little bit about why you became involved in politics, your personal reason. And whoever would like to start with that, go ahead and start.
Yeah, I originally was going to school for environmental science. That was kind of my passion, but I'd paid attention to politics since 2016 when Trump was elected. It was just before that election that I had come out of the closet as gay and trying to find myself in this new life. And then when Trump was elected, all that kind of came crashing down in my mind. And so I started paying attention more, but I wasn't really involved. But what changed was in 2020, my boyfriend at the time was interning on a congressional race south of here, south of Ann Arbor. And he was begging me to do a phone bank so that he could get his volunteer numbers up. And I was like, absolutely not. I can't even order a pizza. You want me to talk to strangers about politics? No. And then I gave in and I did one, then I did another and another. And now here I am, and it's too late to get out now. But
now you're stuck.
Now I'm stuck, but I've found my new passion and redirection in life, and worked a bunch of campaigns since then. And that feeling of community organizing and when you're successful in even just helping one person but winning an entire election, like that's a feeling that just can't be matched for me.
Are you still studying environmental science? Is that still your major?
No, I've switched over to political science. I found out quickly that the science part of environmental science wasn't really my jam, but the policy side of things, that's it.
Understood. Okay, Ethan, Stella, whichever one of you would like to go next.
Yeah, so I actually got involved in politics at a very young age. I was in, I think, second grade When I first became interested in politics, I went to the book fair, bought this thing on the US presidents, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. I'm loving learning about what they're doing and how they helped shape our country as it is today. It was really 2016 when I got involved in campaigns. I kind of helped with the Sanders campaign. I was rooting behind Bernie and then behind Hillary when she won the nomination. And ever since then, I've just kind of been working on campaigns 2018, 2020, 2022, and now in 24. It's just something that's always kind of piqued my interest.
So mine is not as traditional, I would say. I feel like my why is very unique to me as a person. But up until I'd say my freshman year of high school, 8th grade, I didn't really care much about politics. I didn't see what was happening on the news. My parents didn't vote. My parents didn't talk to me about it whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, my mom had to move to Moscow, Russia for a job and took my brother and I with her. After experiencing the political atmosphere in Russia, especially being in Moscow so close to the Kremlin and stuff like that, it changed me as a person and it changed my morals a lot, and it made me more active and vocal about what I believe in. And since then, I kind of hit the ground running. I moved back to the United States my junior year of high school, and I started with a school board campaign, helping out, knocking on doors, organizing, mobilizing, and it kind of just skyrocketed from there. I helped out on some congressional campaigns, some state rep campaigns, and now I'm here with the Michigan College Dems, which is awesome, and I love what I do, and I study political science at school, and I love it so much, and I really don't see myself doing anything else.
So tell us about the primary mission of Michigan Federation of College Democrats. I was on the website reading through everything on there, and I know you all just had a new board elected, and you're deciding on what the agenda is going to be. Has that been decided since we have a presidential election coming up very soon?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we want to do and change kind of from how things were run before. Obviously, we existed pre-pandemic, but during the pandemic, a lot of organizations either reworked or kind of died down, and so we have to revamp those. The previous administration did a great job at bringing a lot of things back, but now we have a huge election in front of us that we need to structure for. One thing is building more of a statewide unified network. So all of our chapters around the state, being in Michigan, we have colleges that are pretty far away from each other, but also we have two big colleges, University of Michigan and MSU, who have lots of access to resources and job opportunities, campaign opportunities. But a lot of our other colleges around the state don't have that access, either geographical distance or just the resources. And so one of my priorities when I was running for this position was to be able to extend resources and access to our other colleges that don't typically get them, because we have a lot of talent around the state. It's just a matter of them being able to engage. And so that was kind of my priority in doing that. When doing that, getting people more involved, more engaged, they have more opportunities. We can come together as a more unified front in electing Democrats up and down the ballot across the state.
And I'd like to kind of add to that. So when sometimes I'm onboarding members, and what I kind of tell them is that we exist both as a constituency group and an organizing group. So we do advocate, obviously, for progressive legislation and policies that students like us are incredibly passionate about, but we also, try to mobilize through direct voter contact, getting people out, knocking on doors, calling people, making sure that people know about certain candidates, people know about certain ideas that we kind of want to spread. And what we also try our best at is to, help students like us be successful in their futures. Obviously, an organization like this lines us up for future jobs and future opportunities, and kind of pushes us to be the best kind of working versions of ourselves we can be.
Question regarding this. So you're you tend to be more progressive on the Democratic, progressive Democrats, basically. Do you work closely with the Michigan Democratic Party? And if so, how do you balance between more progressive policy to more, neoliberal policy, I guess, is the best way to put it, best way to say it, honestly. How do
Yeah,
you balance that? Because obviously progressive, your generation, Gen Z, I have a 19-year-old son he's raised by me, so he's very political. He's away at an internship right now, or he'd be on this podcast with us. Your generation tends to be more progressive. So how do you balance that? So the first question is, do you work closely with the Michigan Democratic Party? And then how do you balance that with your agenda of being more progressive versus more on the neoliberal side of the party?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Something that I've been navigating since I took this position in April. We are a caucus within the Michigan Democratic Party. So we are directly connected, and I kind of serve as that connector. But in my conversations with the MDP, I've told them, I am 100% committed to your same goals. We need to get Democrats elected up and down the ballot. I said, but also, the Michigan Democratic Party as a whole has values that differ from my constituency. I have an obligation to represent youth voices, and that's going to differ between what the normal establishment would want or what some older generations would want in terms of policies. And so, I mean, it's just building that relationship with them of like, we both have the same goals here to get Democrats elected. We're going to advocate for our issues, though. And, we're not going to do so in a way where we ostracize you. I have total respect for the issues that you care about and you guys want, but I have an obligation to my people as well. And so we can find ways where we can work together on this. We can implement policies from both sides. I grew up very much in the idea of compromise as necessary to get things done. That's how I was raised. You talk to people, if you disagree, you come to some sort of middle ground, and you're not going to get everything that you want, but you're going to get some of it, and you're going to build from there. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people forget these days. And so that's how I approach my relationship with the MDP. Yes, we're both on the left, but even being both on the left, we vary in policy. So it's just a communication, an understanding, and a respect sort of thing that you have to build with them.
I think Adam covered it pretty well. Obviously, there are going to be certain aspects of legislation or politics that we want pushed further, but that does not mean that we are going to, strongly criticize our party, because progress is being made, especially with the House, Senate, and governor being fully blue. There has been so much done in Michigan in terms of progress for the LGBTQ community, abortion rights, et cetera, and we just can't wait to see more of that happen, and we hope to advocate to see more of that happen. But we do also need to understand that as quickly as those rights were given to us in Michigan, those could as quickly be stripped away, and understanding that and kind of having young people understand that so they can head to the polls and vote blue and be excited to and proud to be Democrats.
Yeah, we have just experienced that with the overturning of Roe v. Wade on a national level. So understanding that none of this is a guarantee and that we have to keep fighting for this is such a critical point. So kind of piggybacking on this also, this topic, Gen Z is a massive voter base, huge voter base. And you all truly are the ones who helped turn Michigan back to blue in 2022. And then on a national level, got more people, more Democrats into Congress and Senate as well, and not have it be the blue wave or the red wave that the right was talking about and expecting in 2022 was kind of a shocker, which, not a shocker to me, but it was a shocker to a lot of people. So with that, what kind of strategies and collaborations that you all can talk about, because I know you were in the positions that you were in 2022 or that you are now in 2022, but what kind of strategies and collaborations worked to make that happen in 2022, and how are you implementing them for 2024? Because 22 or 2022 was a critical one, but the 2020 presidential election was probably one of the most important of our lifetime. This year is even more so. So what strategies worked that you will continue to employ, and what additional strategies to get younger people to show up to vote in November?
I talked to a lot of my friends and told them, hey, I know that we hear what is happening in the country, what each person stands for, but here's what's at stake. And that's something that we in the MICD are kind of always talking about and will continue to talk about with the 2024 presidential election is what's at stake. We have reproductive rights in the state of Michigan and in the country as a whole that essentially we're putting into the hands of Donald Trump or Joe Biden. We have gun safety, police reformation, LGBTQ rights. We have all these rights and important topics that I think almost every young voter cares about. It's important to know that we are such an important, in a way, caucus of the election, but such an important group that comes together and votes on these important topics. Like I said, personally, I've sat down, talked to all of my friends, and told them what's happening, because not everyone is like us. Not everyone is reading the news every day and following what's happening in politics. So I always say the worst type of voter isn't a Democratic voter or a Republican voter. It's the uninformed voter.
I think that your generation is probably the most political young generation, new voters, probably ever in history. I'm a Gen X. My generation was pretty apathetic. And a lot of what has happened over the past 20, 30 years is because of that apathy within politics. And I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe it's because I have a son that's your age group who is very political as well. And so I might have a skewed view of this, but I feel that your generation is far more political than other generations. Am I correct in saying that? Is that a correct assumption, do you think?
I definitely think that we are one, if not the most political generations, seeing as though a lot of, what we're fighting for is our future. When it comes to climate change, we're obviously thinking about the fact that we want us or our kids to live as long as we possibly can with clean air and a clean environment, making sure that, we have proper needs in terms of health, like reproductive rights and healthcare and stuff like that, just making sure that our futures are set up for success that were kind of slid under the rug for so long. Because a lot of politicians, or at least we would say a long time ago, did not really take our generation into account. And now we want our voices to be heard. We want a seat at that table. And we are making that change for ourselves.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it too, I'd say we are definitely one of the most political generations. But, that's also kind of because we have, everything happening right before our eyes all the time on a little screen in front of us. So that definitely plays a huge part in it. But, what comes with that is also misinformation, disinformation, being able to sort out what's true and what's not. And so there's that struggle with having our phones in front of us with the news all the time. Aside from that, though, I think there's also this dynamic that generations before us kind of had an idea of what maybe more normal politics was like. And, normal is subjective based on, there's been a lot of abnormal times in our political history. But, like I'm one of very few people on campus, I think, who remembers Obama's administration. I'm a little bit older than most people on my campus, at least in the undergrads. And I talk to people, and their functional memory of politics starts at or after 2016.
Wow.
Yeah, they have no memory of when politics was maybe a little bit more docile. The inflammatory rhetoric wasn't there. The attacks on our democratic systems weren't there. That's all that they know is those 4 years of Trump and then the 4 years that we've had of Biden with Trump in the background the whole time. There's no memory of anything else.
That's such a good point, because I think that's something my generation fails to recognize and realize, is that
Mhm.
you have no memory prior to that. So this is all that you know. You
Yeah.
don't know what it was like before then. You weren't around when 9/11 happened and what happened after that,
Mhm.
or when I remember Reagan being elected. And then I lived through that. I was 10 years old when he was elected as president, and I've lived through the president since then, and Bill Clinton and George Bush, Jr., going through 2 terms with that, and the hanging chads and all of that craziness. It's so true that you don't have that. And that's something I feel like my generation absolutely forgets about,
Mhm.
or even fails to realize, is that you don't have that memory. And so this volatility is truly all that you know.
Yeah. No, it's
Such a
it's
good
completely
point.
all that we know. I mean, we've grown up with Trump. We've grown up with the attacks on democracy. We've grown up with school shootings. We've grown up with climate change as an existential threat that we all know is going to, if we don't do something, doom the rest of our lives, or at least that's how it's portrayed to us. And I wouldn't say it's wrong. We have all of these existential threats that all of a sudden, we're seeing on our phones right in front of us growing up. How can we not be political? You have to. If you want to actually live, kind of like what Stella's saying, if you want to live the life that you want to live later on, you have to. There's no other option. So I think that's why we're definitely a lot more political, is we have no other option.
I have a question on gun safety, because something what you just said too, you brought it up. Like, you all are raised in the generation where you're doing drills in school, like active shooter drills, which is something the rest of us cannot even comprehend what that's like on college campuses, on high school campuses. MSU had a mass shooting last year. So explain in your words what that means to you, growing up with that fear, if it's a fear or concern. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but growing up with that at the forefront of your everyday life. Explain to us what that feels like and what that means to you, and why gun safety is such an important issue for you.
I think that there's one really kind of overarching way to put it, is that we are tired. We are tired of, having to hide under our desks every time there's a threat. We're tired of having to have bulletproof whiteboards, and we're tired of having to have our, teachers be trained for circumstances like this, because we don't see this in any other country. This is kind of an exclusive issue to Americans. And we do understand that there is a Second Amendment right. Okay. But what we also understand is that there are common sense gun laws out there that should be or are implemented to, help kids be safe in schools, because walking around and having to look for the nearest exit in every single room you're in should not be the case at all for any of us. I know my junior year of high school, there was the shooting at Oxford High School, which is like 20 minutes from my house, which is so scary how close that was. And when I was in my senior year of high school, we had two instances where we had to lock ourselves in our, classrooms and stay there for 4 hours straight. And it's just, it's frustrating, and we're tired of it. And we do want to see progress made so that no more lives are lost to this exclusively American issue.
I'd like to add that you had mentioned, kind of the fear or concern of it. Unfortunately, it's not really a fear anymore. It's just kind of the normal life in an elementary, in a middle or high school, having these active shooter drills. At my high school, we had someone actually bring a gun to the school, so we had to go in lockdown in my senior year. That was the same year as Oxford. We would practice because we had two campuses for our high school. So we'd practice where our principal would come over the speaker and say, all right, we have a student wearing this. They're located in this wing. Now's the time to make the decision. Would you run or would you barricade and try and kind of fight? So it really, for me, isn't necessarily this fear anymore. It's just kind of the unfortunate normalcy of life.
That's tragic. On
Yeah.
behalf of the rest of us, I am sorry for that. I think it's unconscionable that this is the level of trauma that we have put on you all over a Second Amendment, that just something that could be far easier solved than making you all prisoners in school and living with the normalcy of potentially being shot to death when you go to school, whether
Yeah,
you're
it's
going at high school, to elementary, or college, or to the grocery store. It's insane to me.
I've always viewed it as just kind of like a waiting game. Like, when is it gonna happen to me? It's not. It's like an unconscious fear. I don't even think about it, and I've talked to plenty of other students who don't even think about it anymore. But like, when you walk into a room, where's the nearest exit? Don't face your back towards the exit. When I know, for me personally, and a few of my friends, when I'm out in public or like studying on campus, I don't wear like noise canceling headphones, or I'll keep one headphone out, because like you'd have to know what's going on around you. I know 3 people who have been shot. Like, I turned 24 this year, and I know 3 people personally who have been shot. One of them at MSU. I grew up just outside MSU, so that's my entire community. So many of my classmates that I graduated with are at MSU. One of them who was unfortunately shot. My sister was on campus when that happened, or she was near campus, and it's terrifying. And one thing I'll never forget, when I was in high school, we had a lockdown, and no one knew it was coming. I don't remember if it was just like a false alarm or if something was happening in the community, because it didn't last very long. But it was right at the end of the school. They were all getting ready to leave. Lockdown alarm came on, and we all went into the back closet of our classroom. And I'll never forget the look on my teacher's face, just of like trying to remain calm, but you could just see the terror in her eyes. And
Mm.
she was holding a pair of scissors.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that will stick with me forever, because that's not her job. You know, she should not have to be the first line of defense to protect us. She's supposed to be teaching us American lit. That's her job. She's not paid to put her life on the line.
Yeah.
She's not paid nearly enough to do her normal job. So like, that's what we grew up with. That's how it is. And I mean, yeah, we're tired. This shouldn't be how it is, and we want that to change. So, you know, I'm always surprised when people are like, "Oh, these young people,
They
they're
dismiss
so."
it. They
Yeah, they
dismiss
dismiss
it.
it. They dismiss it. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you have kids. Where's the concern?
Right.
It's just shocking to me. I don't quite get it, but we're gonna keep fighting.
How do you feel about, and I think there was a legislation last year in Michigan. I can't remember the name of the bill off the top of my head. Perhaps you'll know it, but how do you feel about teachers being armed in the classroom? What are your thoughts on that?
Hell no. That's not their job. That's not what they're paid for. And it's just more guns in a situation. No. I mean, like, when you have a deadly weapon, accidents will happen. There's going to be misunderstandings, not necessarily like intentional shootings, but fear takes over in a mind, and especially a mind that's not trained or ready and willing to have access to that, and have to defend students who, like, these teachers truly love and care about their students. They will do anything for their students. And just bringing more deadly weapons into a situation, you're just asking for someone to get hurt.
Yeah, I would say kind of my 2 cents is in our ideal world as young people, as college students, as students in general, is one where there are no guns in schools. And that means in any capacity, whether it's a threat, whether it's a teacher, whether it's, you know, security guards that walk the school or walk around the school. In our ideal future, or in our ideal lives, I guess what we want to see is nothing that can actively danger a student on any campus, in any classroom, held by any teacher or any person in general, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay. Ethan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to echo Adam, hell no, let's not arm our teachers, because it's not necessarily always a student who is the active shooter in this situation. Say we arm our teachers and a teacher just has a really bad day and something happens and that's their last straw. What do you do in that situation? Because you're providing that teacher with a firearm. Or say there's a student who knows that the gun is in the classroom, so they go and they grab that gun. It's not something that should happen. My mother's a teacher. She's an elementary school teacher. And she said if they, that's not something that she would ever want to happen. No teacher should have a gun, especially in the elementary level. Period.
We are going to take a quick break here to talk a few minutes about something very important to me and for Michigan. Our Bring the Love initiative through our Love Where You Live Foundation. Did you know that in Michigan, 85% of our fire departments are made up of volunteers? Well, now you do. These volunteers all work full-time jobs and careers outside of the fire department. Some are even business owners, and many have families. Most of them have families. They sacrifice a lot for us and go above and beyond what a typical full-time firefighter provides to our communities. Our selfless volunteers make themselves available to answer the calls when we need them, day and night without fail. And most of us take them for granted. They brave the flames, the crashes, the crises, putting their lives on the line for all of us daily. And most of us don't recognize it, and they are not appreciated nearly enough. But who's there for them when the sirens fade? At Live Love Local Michigan, we know firsthand the challenges our first responders face. Not only physical dangers, but often unseen mental health battles through stress-related injuries. And that's why we've launched the Bring the Love initiative, a lifeline for Michigan's volunteer firefighters and first responders. Partnering with the UCF Restores program, we are redefining how PTSD and trauma are not only understood, but diagnosed and treated. Our goal with this initiative is to restore lives, families, and communities. And through evidence-based treatment, cutting-edge technology, and an unwavering dedication, the Bring the Love initiative also supports the creation of a more trauma-informed society throughout Michigan, one where mental health stigma is dismantled and those in need are empowered to seek the help they need and deserve. Through peer support training, department-based post-traumatic event discussion, county-based community liaisons, and our statewide Red Line Rescue database of licensed professionals, we are connecting our unsung heroes with those who understand their unique challenges. We are training hundreds of people in peer support and equipping licensed professionals with the tools to provide culturally competent care to our volunteers. We are also developing a critical incidents response team to stand ready to deploy in times of need, offering immediate mental health support during community tragedies and crises, such as mass shootings, which we have far too many of these days. But we can't do it alone, folks. Your support is crucial. Every purchase from our firefighter product line or a direct donation through our website helps to fund this life-changing initiative. Together, we can ensure that our first responders not only survive, but thrive. Join us in ending the stigma around mental health and providing the support our unsung heroes deserve. Visit lovewhereyoulivefoundation.org to donate and be directed to our firefighter shop. The products sold in our shop directly support this initiative. You will also find links to all of our resources in our show notes. Share these resources with literally everyone you know. I mean, literally everyone. Together, let's make Michigan's communities stronger and more resilient, because when we support those who support us, everyone wins. Everyone wins. This kind of piggybacks on the whole discussion of what we've had so far about your generation. Why do you feel it is crucial for young people to become involved in politics and also consider running? There have been a lot of Gen Z who have started being, we have one in Congress right now, 25-year-old, I think he's 26 now, out of Florida, who is sitting, is a member of Congress. And we've had a couple of Gen Zs elected to state legislatures around the country. Why do you think it's crucial for young people to get involved in politics right out of the gate? And do you guys encourage running for office early, or do you encourage like going and having a career first and then becoming more involved as becoming members of a political party?
Honestly, we
Ethan.
are so... Yeah, Ethan's running. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, you are? What are you running for,
I am.
Ethan?
I'm running for school board.
Yay! It starts local.
It does.
Politics starts local. Yay, Ethan. Tell us a little bit about that. Give yourself a plug.
I'm running because, like I said, my mother's a teacher. I'm a secondary education major, so I want to teach social studies. I'm a political science minor. I was on the school board my senior year as the student body representative. So I've worked with this group before. And one thing that I want to do is I want to be able to help the students, help the teachers, because I've seen my mother come home from school and she's just had a rough day. Her principal hasn't been as helpful, or her board and stuff like that haven't been there for her. But I've also seen the opposite, where she's come home and she's praised them and said, I was having kind of a rough day because a parent was kind of on me about this situation, and my principal stepped in and they really stepped up to bat for me. They helped me, and I can't thank them enough. And so I want to really be there to try and help as many of the students and as many of the teachers that I can.
Yeah, first of all, having young people run for office is awesome. I know a lot of us are taking kind of a small step for man by being delegates at the Democratic National Convention this August. The three of us are going to be in Chicago, which is awesome.
Fantastic.
And, moving forward, having young people run, whether it's local, whether it's statewide, whether it's national, have at it. You know what I mean? Like, we want, as I said before, we want our voices to be brought to the table, and whether that's through an elected position or whether that's kind of, being involved in another way, anything we can do to, get ourselves out there is an amazing step towards progress. And I remember last year I was at this conference in DC and I was listening to Rep. Summer Lee speak about this issue, and one thing that really struck a chord with me was the fact that everything is political. The air we breathe is political. The roads you drive on is political. The cost of your groceries is political. Your bodily autonomy is political, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything we do, everything we do from when we wake up and when we go to sleep, it's all political. And we have the power to change things, and we have the power to, control the way our kind of lives are. How am I saying this? I guess we can control the way that, we live our lives. And, we want to see a world of progress and we want to see a world of change. And so that's what we're going to do.
Awesome. As I say, politics is life.
Mm-hmm.
Every aspect of our lives is, no, you cannot with literally anything.
There's this one quote, I forget who said it, but it was something like, someone says, "I don't do politics." Well, politics is going to do you. I'm like, that's what it is. It's not a lie at all. And another thing, like, I fully support young people running, and so many young people I talk to are like, well, I don't like the current people in power and like the policies that they're doing. Like, I wish they do this. And I'm like, well, if they're not doing it, then do it yourself. Like, but that, you got to put in the work and you got to do it. So, yeah, I mean, I think young people totally should be running for office, like Ethan. I mean, he's leading the way in that area.
Right on, Ethan. We're going to do a podcast with you on your campaign, sir. So I have a couple of very direct questions that kind of, fall into all of this that we're talking about specific things that are happening. It's no secret there's a divide within the Democratic Party right now because of what is happening in Israel and Gaza. It's a hard conversation to have, I think, but it's a conversation we need to have. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not even going to frame this in a way that's going to lead you. I'm just curious as to your thoughts on how we can bring the party together, because it's not at the moment. It's currently split. How we can bring the party together on such a critical issue, because it's a massively critical issue.
Yeah, I mean, the divide is stark, and it's especially stark between young people and the more establishment. And, this is, I think, kind of a divide that's been simmering for a while. And this conflict is what brought it all to the surface. And I think college students are really struggling because they wanted the Democratic Party to be the change we needed to see away from the immoral practices of Donald Trump. And then they view the current administration and their actions towards the Middle East as immoral. And so I think they feel really lost. How am I supposed to vote for this party, or how am I supposed to tell someone they should vote this way when the person I'm telling them to vote for they think is acting immorally, doesn't align with their morals? I don't blame them for that. That's a difficult thing. So one thing that I think needs to happen is the presidential administration and the people nationally, they need to at least start listening to youth voices, because we are the future. We're coming up, and we are concerned. We care about this across the board. And my biggest fear is youth not engaging this year because they feel like they have no option morally. And you can't argue with morals. Like, that's who people are. My message to them is, you need to start paying attention, because you're losing the youth vote, in my opinion, or you're going to be losing unless you act differently. And I think the president has made the right steps in some areas to build some of that, but it's still very unknown to me how it's going to shake out with young people. And so one thing that I've been really focusing on is at least getting people to vote in general. I mean, down ballot, bottom of the ticket, you have your local races like Ethan, you have your state rep races. We need to keep our Democratic trifecta. We have Michigan Supreme Court races. All of those are incredibly important, and they don't deal with foreign policy. These are issues that are right at home for our students, for people. We need to vote for those races, and while you're at it, there's the top of the ticket too. It's a beginning step in like how we should approach this, but a reverse coattails kind of approach might be what we end up doing, at least on our college campuses. It's too early to tell right now. We just got started in the summer, and who knows how things will shake out when students come back in the fall. But that's kind of where I'm at recently, and the only effective approach I seem to be taking that seems to be working. And then when it comes to encampments on campuses, aside from whether or not you think that the encampments themselves are appropriate or not, why do the encampments exist to begin with? Why are they there? It's because students care so strongly about this, that this is what they've resorted to. So, there are people on the right and the left who are painting the students in these encampments as disruptors, naive, they don't know, when the broad reason why they're there in general is because they care so much and they're not being listened to. And so, I'm not going to speak on whether or not I support encampments. That's not my concern. My concern is why they exist to begin with. I mean, students are very frustrated with the Biden administration. They're frustrated with how he's handled it. They're frustrated that he said Rafah was the red line. Netanyahu crossed that red line and we're still supplying weapons. They're frustrated with Biden condemning the international courts. Like that, that's... I had one student recently I was talking to. They said, well, how is that any different from Donald Trump trashing our American courts? That's an institutional system. And I couldn't argue with him.
You can't argue with that point.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't argue with that. That is a pretty solid comparison. And so, how am I... Even the Trump will be worse than Biden tactic is failing in that regard. So, I mean, I am fully committed to getting Biden reelected. We all are. That's our job. And doing that is getting students engaged, get them out to vote. But I will say Biden is making it very difficult for me to do my job. And so, things need to change. I don't know how, but they need to change.
How about the other two of you on this?
Yeah, I would say that I totally agree with genuinely every single word that just came out of Adam's mouth. I can kind of speak on this from a more comms perspective. Something that we've been focusing on is a lot of positive messaging towards Biden, talking about what he's done well for the American people, what he's done well for Michigan, and what Trump obviously is going to strip from us if he were to be elected. But this is definitely an issue that cannot be ignored. And in our opinion, Biden must focus on the youth vote if he wants to get into the White House. Because from a lot of conversations that me and probably you two have had with your friends, is that they're saying that they're going to vote third party, they're not going to vote at all. And that obviously is going to negatively impact us come November. So what we are trying to really push for is positive messaging, but also recognizing this as an issue and striving for change.
Anything to add, Ethan?
No, I think, Adam and Stella, they really did cover it well. I mean, it's just having conversations with friends, making sure that we vote is the most important part.
Yeah, I think that's an important message because in times like this, especially when people feel like either side is not something that they can stand for, we are a democracy and the vote matters. And a lot of people feel that it doesn't. Well, why vote? It doesn't matter. Look what happens anyway. But that's why things continue to happen the way that they do, is because people don't vote. They won't show up and make the change. Or, I mean, a vote is your voice. And so regardless if that voice wins or not right now today, it's important to use your voice. So I think you all are hitting it right on the nose with just show up and vote down the ballot on all the other important issues as well. Question for you on this that I like to ask also. Do you think we have all 435 House seats are up for election this November? 33 Senate seats are up for election this November. Do you feel, and I want your personal opinion on this, do you feel it's more important who is sitting in Congress and Senate, or who's sitting in the House and Senate, than who is sitting as president?
That's a tough one because, I mean, like, our top of we have Biden and we have a convicted felon. So, I mean, like, there's a whole argument of, like, just representing the country. So,
Take those two off. Take those two off where
Take
it's not
those two
Biden.
off.
Yeah, where it's not
Okay.
Biden and Trump. Just in general, we have the House and Senate who are our lawmakers, and there's checks and balances in place here. They affect who is on the Supreme Court as well. The president nominates Supreme Court justices, but it's up to the hearings and appointments for them to get it or not, right? Or it's supposed to be that way. But take Biden and Trump's names off of it and just the presidency as itself. Do you feel that Congress, who is sitting in Congress and Senate, has more of an effect on this country than the president?
As much as I think the president is incredibly important in representing the country for who we are on a national stage, like that's something that really only the president can do. Having the right people in the Senate and the House, I think, is incredibly important, because if we have someone in the presidency who we don't like, if we have the right people in the Senate and the House, they're not going to let a single thing get through that president wants to get done. And they're going to protect us from that. The House and the Senate, they have their own sort of, checks and balances that they have on the presidency. And, if a president's not getting done what they want to get done, they're probably going to be an unpopular president. At least that's how I think it would happen. And then we have a better shot of getting the person we want in the next go around. There's a whole lot of other factors and nuances that play into it, but having a wider body of the right people, I think, is having a lot of the right people is maybe better than having just one of the right people.
Yeah, I do definitely agree. Again, speaking from a more kind of comms perspective, obviously we're doing everything we can to support Joe Biden this November, but what a lot of people don't realize is that we are going to be rooting for Democrats all the way up from the presidency down to our local school board races. So I know a lot of young people don't necessarily realize that this November is not just about Joe Biden, but it's also about literally every other aspect of our state.
It's a huge election. It's a massive election that I don't think people are really grasping.
Yeah, and 100%. And seeing as though this is one, if not the first elections that a lot of us college students are participating in, this is a really kind of intense one to be a part of, or kind of like an insane one to be a part of. It's huge, and we need to understand that, yes, as much as we need to focus on the presidency, we also need to focus on Congress. We also need to focus on our local races, and we also need to focus on genuinely everything else. And yes, it is difficult to have eyes on almost every race in this state, but understanding that those elections do have the power to instill the change that we want to see as a generation.
Truly shape what the future is going to look like, honestly.
I mean, again, Adam and Stella really covered it well, but I think it is important, and I kind of hate to say it, but it is kind of more important to vote for your congressional district and your senator than maybe it is the president, because, like Adam said, the president can say, hey, I'd love to see this happen and this happen, but if Congress doesn't like it, if they don't approve of that, the president will have a tough time getting that through. So I think it is a little more important. I mean, I'm not saying that
it's important to vote for president, sure.
Exactly, yeah. The presidency is an important office, but at that same time, you should also be informing yourself of who's running for Congress and who's running for the Senate as well.
Say also, House and Senate, there's no term limits. President has term limits. The people you elect to the House and Senate, they have the possibility of being there for the rest of their lives.
Oh my gosh, and we are we have so much of that.
Yeah,
so much of that.
There's the intense importance of that too, and I want to add too that, I mean, not only is Michigan essential for the presidency this year, but we have 2 open, highly competitive congressional seats. We have an open, highly competitive Senate seat. We have 2 other highly competitive congressional seats, one that we're defending and one that we're on the offense in. We are the center of the action this year.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. I think our Senate seats is super important to me. That one's really important to me. That's a 6-year term. Congress is, or a House is 2-year term. Senator is a 6-year term. That is incredibly important to me. One question, and then we'll start to close out here we have had 16 false electors indicted in Michigan from the 2020 election. I am curious on your thoughts on that.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that literally hits close to home. One of those members, Amy Facinello, is a current member on the school board that I am running for.
Really? Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
I graduated with her son about 2 years after the election in 22. So I think it's unfortunate that she is still on the school board. She refuses to resign, and there have been multiple recall efforts against her. But I think until her election in 26, she will say, I was elected to this seat by the people of Grand Blanc. I will stay on this board until you get enough signatures to either kick me out or they don't reelect me.
That's a problem in my book with our political system. What Adam and Stella, what do you think about those 16 electors?
The justice system is working. I will say that. There's not a whole lot I can really say on it aside from should we have been surprised that this happened? I don't think so. But I'm glad that, I'll say this, the reason why that they're facing the consequences, we have a Democratic Attorney General and a Democratic Secretary of State, both of whom care about our Constitution, democracy, and the rule of law. That's what's stopping this from being effective all across the country, because we have secretaries of state, some Republican ones too, and attorney generals who are standing up and defending the Constitution. So, I think people need to remember that, you can look at what these fake electors have done and be like, yeah, what they did was wrong. Of course they're going to be punished. But you need to, take that a step further. They're getting punished because we have an attorney general who we elected to actually represent us, follow the Constitution, and promote rule of law. Like that's why this is happening.
Yeah, I think that's an important point that you made, is that there are Republican attorney generals in other states who are standing up against this as well. They're following the rule of law and not allowing this to happen as well, even though they've been threatened with consequences for doing it. So it's an important point to make. It's not a democratic attack against these people. Is there anything else that any of you would like to say with regard to the college Democrats, your agenda moving forward, or for this election? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I am equal parts excited and terrified for this election. I've worked many campaign, it's only been like 4 years since I started, but I've worked many campaigns during that time and dedicated so much of my life to electing Democrats, maybe to a fault of my personal self, but that's a different conversation entirely. But this is what I've centered my life around, and what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I know a lot of people in our organization and a lot of people in our chapters feel similarly. And, not all of us want to go into politics in general. We have, Ethan wants to go into secondary education. I have people in some of my chapters who want to go into business or want to go into law or want to go into the medical field. But this is something that they care about because, like we said, politics is everything. Everything is politics.
Yeah.
And they understand that. And so I'm excited to see how we can work together this year to bring college students together, remind everyone what's at stake, and have that same incredible turnout that we've had in years past where we clearly impact elections. I will say Washtenaw County, where U of M is, in 2022, I don't think we're in the top 5 most populous counties. I'm not quite sure where we sit, but it's definitely not in the top 3. But Washtenaw County had the 3rd highest turnout, the 3rd highest number of voters in the state. And that's because we had lines at our campus voting campus voting precincts that stretched until 3 a.m. because students cared that much. And students still care that much. It's just a matter of, we need to get everyone back on board with like I said, down ballot races are incredibly important. We need to turn out for those.
Yeah.
And we need to turn out for top of the ticket too. We just need to move up there. But I will say another kind of message to not just top of the ticket, but candidates in general. I hear this time and time again, just constantly from students who both have said that they're not voting for Biden and who have said that, yes, I'm of course voting for Biden. But all of them have basically said, we are tired of being the reliable vote. Tired of it. We're tired of being the photo op. We're tired of being the audience in a rally where we're told what we care about. We want to talk to you. We want to be heard. I hear it over and over again. Just the disengagement with young people is because those three things: tired of being the photo op, tired of being the reliable vote, tired of being told what we care about. And I feel that to an extent too. It's it's demoralizing when you're like, oh, this person's coming, or I get to talk to this person, and then you get like a 2-minute conversation in a picture.
Yeah.
It's one thing that I found super successful here at University of Michigan is we had Congressman Ro Khanna from California come in to have like an open discussion with students specifically about Israel Gaza. And he came in with the intention of it being a Q&A, with the intention of listening to students. And we had people from both sides of the issue, people who didn't really fall anywhere on the issue, come in, ask questions. Of course, there were a few tense moments, but it was regulated well. It was really good conversations were had, even though people didn't agree with each other. And some people, not everyone agreed with what Ro had to say either. But after that event, I had people from all of those different sides come to me and say, this was really good. I felt listened to. I felt heard. And then Ro later went on to do a New York Times article, I think, where he said, like, I talked to these students at the University of Michigan and they changed my mind on a few things going forward that I need to start like taking a different approach to. And, I showed that to as many people who came to the event as I could. And I said, look, this is what you did. And that engaged people so much. They were like, you could just see like, oh, that I did something that worked. I got to talk.
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
And,
that's so important.
It is. But that requires candidates to do the uncomfortable thing that they don't usually want to do and actually talk to people. Don't host, rallies are good, pump up the crowd, but you're representing us. We want to tell you what we care about. And so I feel like a lot of candidates try to avoid that as much as possible. And, I guess, I don't really blame them. It's an uncomfortable situation. But, like, if you want to represent us, you got to put in the work. And when it comes to young people, that's the biggest thing.
They're in a position where they're going to be uncomfortable. They want to be leaders of this country. So
Exactly.
You're going to be uncomfortable and you have to have hard conversations. And if you're unwilling to do that, this is not the job for you. If you're not willing to talk to your constituents, this is not the job for you. I personally think no politician should be allowed to say no to media or to a conversation with their constituent. I think that should be a law that they cannot say no. I would go that far with it. That's fantastic. Stella, Ethan, anything to add to that?
Just in closing, vote. Everyone, it's important for our generation to vote. There's a quote that President Kennedy said that I love and that I'm following with my own school board election is, if not us, who? If not now, when? It's important for us to vote. We really are, even though we don't want to be this deciding factor anymore, we really are an important facet of this election. And so, we all get it. We don't want President Biden, but we don't want President Trump. It was kind of how it was in 2016, the better of the worse. And then again in 2020, you have, one candidate who you may not like, but he's better than the other guy. So we get it. We're tired. We don't want to have to be this deciding factor, but at the end of the day, it is important to vote for all of these local and state elections.
I think it's so telling that all of you are 24 and under, and the statement from every one of you is, I'm tired. You're 24 and younger, and your statement is, I'm tired. That is so telling at what we have put on the shoulders of all of you.
Yeah.
Crazy. Thank all of you. Keep fighting the good fight. I know you're exhausted. I'm exhausted, so I can imagine y'all. So, and keep fighting the good fight. That's all I can say. It's going to be worth it one day. Mm-hmm. I promise you that. It will be. It's not going to, the battles are hard, but we're going to win the war. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
completely.
Thank you guys. Thank all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Righteous Uproar. Be sure to check out our show notes for information and links discussed and related to this podcast episode. If you enjoy our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening, and be sure to share it with your friends. This really helps us. This podcast is part of the Live, Love, Local Michigan network of podcasts. I am your host and producer, Tamara Graham. Co-producer is Taryn Demal-Cherubu. Music is by Soul Shifters. To subscribe to our parent magazine, where we celebrate Michigan through amazing adventures, stunning photography, high-profile content, and more, visit our website at livelovelocalmi.com. Visit our foundation website at lovewhereyoulivefoundation.org and learn more about our initiatives, including our Bring the Love initiative for Michigan volunteer firefighters, our Indigenous Voices initiative supporting Michigan Indigenous boarding school survivors, our resilience documentary on one man's journey to recover from divorce by throwing himself into bodybuilding, and Postcard from a Friend, where we help spread love and support throughout Michigan and beyond. To purchase products to support our initiatives, visit our shop at shoplivelovelocalmi.com. That is shoplivelovelocalmi.com. We'll see you on the next podcast.